PS4 PS?
A PlayStation 4 Pro Slim?
Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, Mr.
Saw Bridges, bringing you guys episode 121.
Yep.
Lucky 121 for that.
We're going to hope it's lucky. Last week, we had some technical difficulties. Thankfully, we did not have them when we recorded the off-topic podcast. We did not have them when we recorded Reader Mail. So we may have hopefully nipped it in the bud currently.
Also, before we let you know who we are, I got to do an apology to our good boy Felipe, a local streamer who you need to go follow him on Twitch. His name is Rex Strider on Twitch. He asked us 2 reader mail questions that were past the deadline date, and we saved them in Google Keep separately. And we recorded reader mail kind of in a pinch, and we completely forgot about your questions, Felipe. They eluded us in Google Keep, and instead of where we normally save them. So do not fret. We'll answer your questions first and foremost on Reader Mail 14. We're even going to skip sequence. All right, yeah, Reader Mail 15. We're even going to skip sequence instead of doing Facebook, Discord, or Facebook, Twitter, Discord. We're going to go ahead and just do your 2 first before we jump into Facebook. So I am sorry, Felipe. Also, my throat's going out. You might be able to hear that. I can't tell if my voice sounds any different.
I don't know.
But I'm talking to you, dumb. Okay.
I'm saying right now I can't tell.
PG.
Okay, you sound like a little deeper. You sound like if you were trying to slowly lean yourself into auditioning for the role of Batman if you were replacing Christian Bale.
Do you bleed?
Do you bleed? Anyway.
You will.
We are a PlayStation-based podcast, and what we're going to do today is going to end up talking about a user question that we ended up saving for this episode because we thought it was a fun question in light of all the stuff happening with PS5 coming on the horizon and what can be done. We're going to talk about PS4 Pro, whether it should be reiterated as a slim or if it's for too small of a portion of the gaming population, whether or not PlayStation should potentially go about doing a super slim with the PS4, very similar to what they did with the PS3 and even the PSP, but did not do with the Vita. So we're going to see, and we're going to kind of discuss with all that situation. But we're going to start the show off the way it normally is. And if you don't know who we are, like we said, Triangle Squared, a PlayStation-based podcast, you can find us on iTunes. Of course, if you want to listen to us, you can find us on Google Play Music, Spotify, any of those podcast services, and you can just listen to our lovely voices. And if you want to, you can watch the show. We do have a camera and completely film it and have a set and everything. So if you like that element, you can watch us do the show on YouTube. If you like what we're doing over on YouTube, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. It'll let you know when these episodes go live, as well as everything else we do on this channel. And also, let us know your thoughts about what we're talking about down in the comments below. We love to hear y'all's thoughts and whatnot. If you listen to us on podcast services and cannot do anything with comments, obviously, best way to do it is to find us over on social media platforms. Twitter is at Triangle SQRD. We have Facebook, which is a group called Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. Asked to be entered into that, we will gladly accept you. Saul does not have a Facebook, so you only see me and some other community members, but you can gladly do that. And you can also join our Discord, which is more of our day-to-day, moment-to-moment with a lot of our community members. And all of those places are also good for what we normally do in our episodes, which is our community's take section. This week has kind of just been hellish. We had tech problems and then schedule issues. And honestly, we just completely forgot to get it out there. It cut it off of the end of the last episode, so we just had a weird week around it, but we will be bringing it back.
Don't forget about our website that we're also partnered with, finalweapon.net.
Also, something that we forgot to mention last episode because of
just
the fact,
way, everything that's been going on lately. So
a lot of stress around.
We apologize to
problems.
those guys over there. They're great guys, and a lot of the news that you find us talk about in this episode, you probably would have seen it at Final Weapon before the episode even aired. So they're pretty up to date on the news, and it's a cool website, and we have some cool things coming soon.
Yep, good partners.
So, Brett, what have you been playing?
I have been playing a weird
curveball at you.
I know you did. You did. I've been playing a weird mix of stuff. So I think it was Ryan and Richard, if I'm thinking correctly, back when the PS4 or the PlayStation Classic rather was announced, that were saying that I was going to end up getting it because I had a ton of things to think about. I thought that the $100 price point was way too much. I thought the lack of it coming with a power plug, and I still agree with both of these sentences. I know that a micro USB power source is really easy to find in a lot of places, but I still think across the board you have to think about the least common denominator, and definitely when you're talking about people who might be interested in buying a PlayStation Classic, but have not owned a console in any other form or fashion in years. So maybe they would have less of a reason to update their TV. HD TVs, even 8 years ago, some of them still work perfectly fine. They didn't have USB ports, not all of them. It wasn't a standard thing. So some people were like, well, it's easy. It still comes with a micro USB cord, but not an AC adapter, so you can plug it into something. But across the board, I just think it would have been just as easy for them to include a power cord that came with a micro USB end. So those two things existed, but
personally for me, I'm actually on the other side of the fence.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
But
this is very much okay. Like, out of curiosity, how did you feel about when Nintendo did the new 3DS XL and they didn't include a power adapter?
I had one, so I didn't care.
Yeah, but how does that work?
I'm talking about personally. I understand at a greater scale.
Stuff and it didn't hurt me either, because I went from a 3DS XL to the new 3DS XL. I'm talking about for even
the PlayStation. It's just
now. See, I actually don't have one. As it gets to be the point,
you don't have a power brick laying around?
No.
What?
Yeah, no. All of mine are USB-C to USB-C.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Did I have like 4 of them you could have? Did you buy one?
No.
Did you just plug in your TV for power?
Yeah, plugged into my TV, and it works. And don't get me wrong. Again, it's not even about just me. It's about trying to help for.
I understand
because you got to think about this. How many people do you know that were suddenly interested in an SNES or an NES Classic that had not bought a console in 20 years? It
Probably a lot of people.
I know a lot of people.
Did that not come with a power adapter?
No, yeah, it did. It did.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if it did or not.
Well, actually, I could be wrong. I didn't buy one, so I don't know.
I owned both of them. I should know, but I can't remember.
But I want to say
I just plugged it into my TV.
They might not have. They might not have. But either way, it just goes to show. Like Hannah's mom came back into town from Germany, and she hasn't played games in a long time. But she thought about buying the SNES Classic just to play Dr. Mario, or the NES Classic rather. And it's just something to think of. She's somebody who normally is not the market you'd be going after, but she was like, "Oh, I'll buy one of those." And that's the perfect kind of person where they may not have a TV or any of the power bricks laying around. You just have to think about those things, in my opinion. But I did end up buying one. That was a weird tangent. I ended up buying one because they went on sale for $20 during Prime Day, and then Best Buy has them for $20 as well. And I thought, you know what? Worst case scenario, I'll buy it. It's something interesting to have. I do think it's cool as an idea of. I think it was poorly executed, but it was a cool idea.
Yeah.
The games aren't necessarily the best games that I would have chose to put on there, even from the ones that I think Sony realistically could have got on there, like Crash Bandicoot. The fact that there's not a single Crash Bandicoot is weird.
It's
Not that you had to have all 3 of them, but one of them would have sufficed.
It's iconic.
There's tons of stuff. I don't think Ape Escape is on there.
It's not.
So there's a lot of games that I think would have been great choices that just didn't get put on there.
I keep hitting my mic arm, so I'm sorry for the audio.
So anyway, I ended up buying one, plugging it in, playing it. Me and Trace yesterday, because we were just screwing around, I plugged it in for the first time. It's got smaller controllers without the analog sticks. So in my mind, I was like, this could be a great way for Kyrie to play these things.
By smaller, do you mean like smaller to scale, or do you mean they're just the first gen without
the first gen without analogs, and they were already smaller than what ended up being.
Yeah, but I didn't know if you meant smaller than the launch.
No,
version.
they are.
I was gonna say, that's weird.
They are to scale.
Okay,
but it's just that it's been that long since you've had a controller without analog sticks. It's
been you never used your adult hands for a controller that small.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So anyway, it helps, and I think it fit Kyrie's hands. So my idea is to get other games on it and get her to play them and have fun. But me and Trace were playing Tekken 3 yesterday.
Yucky.
And enjoyed it because I think it was more of a nostalgia trip than anything. Me and Trace used to play Tekken 3 constantly,
and I hated Tekken games.
Yeah, so I loved them.
Soul Calibur. Or Dead or Alive.
Dead or Alive was also good. When we got a Dreamcast, we did start playing Dead or Alive like crazy.
Dead or Alive 3, I think, on like the
Xbox, the original Xbox.
Yeah, that had like Master Chief as one of the hidden characters. And then
I think you were right.
Yeah, it did. Well, it wasn't Master Chief. Actually, it was a Spartan, but it was a female Spartan.
Oh, okay. But it was still Halo.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, but I played that. That's the first thing. I played more Far Cry 3, and this will be my last time talking about Far Cry 3. But now that I beat it and done so much, I'm back to the reason of and it's just funny. It may be because I'm playing it, and so I'm seeing it more because it's something I'm kind of accidentally looking for. But I've seen a lot of people talking about Far Cry 3 recently, and people being like, I don't understand why people think that this is such a great game, or some people being like, oh, this is a great game, and then people in the comments saying they don't agree. Some people doing what I do, which is defending 4, but just saying that the reason 4 was so lambasted on release was because it was just more of Far Cry 3. So even though it was better in a lot of ways, it just didn't feel new enough.
Right.
But all those things aside, the more I continue to play it, and I really this week I got more of the story done than anything, because before I was just going through and getting all the towers, all the outposts that I could until I got to the point where you're at Hoyt's Island, and I love that game so much for one very particular reason. And I think it's the reason that so many people go into it. Of all the Far Cry games, I think it had the most thought put into what its influence was, what it was trying to do, and, having a constant theme that carries throughout the game in a great way. So I don't know if you recall this, and I think a lot of people could easily miss them if they're just not perceptive or they don't pay attention to loading screens. But there's a lot of times in that game where loading screens will happen, and you'll see quotes from Alice in Wonderland. Or actually Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is a book.
I don't remember enough of that game. So
okay, so in certain parts of the games, there will be load screens, and you'll see quotes come up from different sections of the book. And they all tie into this idea and this theme about being in an unfamiliar world for who you are. So Jason ties into, which Jason Brody is the main character of the game.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be analogous to Alice in this situation.
Right, because he's like shipwrecked.
Exactly. He's thrust into a world
kidnapped
that
by pirates, right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
but he's thrust into a world that's not where he's used to. It's so different that what's going on there is weird to him. And it is kind of a mystical world. One of the things about the game is there's an animal that's been extinct forever called a thylacine. They've been extinct since like the 1920s.
Yeah.
And there's very, very early camera footage of them that's very, really weird looking. They're in the game. So what I mean by that is that
it's almost a fantasy world.
It's like a game that, and then there comes to other parts in the game where as you keep going, Voss always talks about different things, and I think most people would describe Voss as mad, and Alice in Wonderland has a constant note around madness when you talk about things with not only the Cheshire Cat but the Mad Hatter and all that situation going on. So it starts to tie all these things together where you see these quotes and it goes and keeps reiterating on madness specifically, and then you have the famous quote from Voss of "Have I ever told you the definition of insanity?" and going through all that, and the game just does this really good thing.
Is that quote from Alice in Wonderland?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I'd never knew
that would be really cool, though, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? Or at least I don't think it is. It's been so long since I've read part of that book. I've never finished it.
We're talking about like the original story?
Yes, it's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I actually have the book. I just never finished it. And then the sequel was Through the Looking Glass. So
is the Grimm fairy tale of that one the original?
No, I don't know. No.
Okay.
Lewis Carroll was the author of the book.
Okay.
Him and J.R. Tolkien were friends, just to give you an example. But anyway, going back to how they relate to each other, there's a lot of things that they do to actually tie those in and really show and bring home this idea of what their thematic thing is. In the cave that your friends go to as you start to save them, you can go to the back and there's a thing on the table, and you'll see like a little bucket of like essentially psychedelics, and beside it is a card that says "Eat Me." That's obviously something that's tied into Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, because that thing was very that.
Well, it was all full of references to "Eat Me, Drink Me" of different things and how it affects you.
That and psychedelics too.
Sure, yeah. And when you look at all that, so there's that connection. Then you have Voss and the fact that when you're preparing for Voss, and this is going to be a little spoilery, but Far Cry is so old at this point. I would hope that this serves, if nothing else, to give you want to play it if you've never played it. It came out in 2012. So
7 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
At that point, though, one of the things that happens, Citra, who is Voss's sister, comes through and she gives you this potion, and you go a layer deeper into a magical world, and you start doing these things. And so there's a lot of these tie-throughs, and then as the game starts to kind of come full circle, you get to this point where it's like you're falling deeper and deeper into Wonderland, as it were, in this thing, and you're losing more and more of who you are as you continue to dive deep into this thing. And then at the end of the game, there's a thing that happens where there's a decision you have to make, and I won't spoil it completely, but there's a decision you have to make that essentially comes down to you can either make a decision that to wake up from the nightmare, the Wonderland, the dream, as it were, and be done with it and go back to your normal life as it was, and kind of wake up from Wonderland, which is what the end of the book really is that she was just sleeping the whole time.
Yeah.
And then the other choice is more like give in, succumb to what the nightmare and dream in Wonderland has created and just stay there forever. And that's like the good tie-in to everything. And that ends with a section where you go through and there's weird things happening around you. It's very mystical. And I love that tie-through. I think it's a great idea. And I think that you can tell when you're playing the game that it has the most focused idea. I think that there were some missteps by getting Hoyt to be the ending villain instead of giving you more time with Voss, who was obviously better written. And then the greater thing, too, is that you start to realize that Citra is just as crazy as Voss in just a different way. I love the game. I just beat it today before you came over. I beat the final mission, and now I'm just doing trophy cleanup. Love the game. Anybody who has it should definitely play it. I played a little bit of Destiny 2. Very, very very little, and I played a little bit of PSP when I was working on replacing the case of the old one that I had with Kyrie's PSP case. So I played Tactics Ogre, let us cling together just to try it out, make sure it worked right. Fun times. What you been playing?
I've only been playing one game this week. Well, technically 2, but I haven't played any Destiny 2 at all. I've been taking kind of a break for that because I started to feel some burnout, and I didn't want to feel that right around Shadowkeep, even though Shadowkeep is making the game so different that it's going to be hard to tell a difference.
Well, still, you don't want to have to do the thing where you jump into a game that you normally like and are already fatigued about it. Let yourself get a breather before this big hit that you know is going to pull you back in.
Yeah. And so I haven't played any of that at all. I have been playing a ton of Dark Souls Remastered. I've made and created like 5 different characters, trying out different builds for some potential Let's Play stuff for Saw plays and that. Just kind of seeing what I want to play with. And then I've been playing Magic Arena on PC. I bought Overwatch to play with Kiki and Sean, but lately it just depends on when I get home and how I'm feeling to play a competitive shooter or just to watch a movie or something. But that's really kind of been it. I've been really just kind of tired lately and kind of wanting to just do my own thing in Dark Souls because I've been having a ton of fun with that. So,
are you any further? I saw that you got a lot of pointers from Josh. Shout out to our patron and longtime listener.
Yeah, like Dark Souls 1, I've said it before, is my least explored Dark Souls game, my least played Dark Souls game compared to 2 and 3. And it's one of those that, like, it's so different because it's so older. Like, dexterity in this game, once you get past a certain point, actually makes your casting speed faster. Like, and then, like,
I didn't know that.
Pyromancy Glove doesn't rely on intelligence or faith to it's typically intelligence, but it doesn't rely on intelligence to level it up. You just go to the Pyromancer and Firelink once you unlock them, and you just simply leveled up with souls. You don't even need Titanite shards or anything.
Okay.
So it's very weird. It's very different in terms of like a Souls game that I know, which is 2 and 3.
Sure. And you've played 3 so much recently that I'm sure it's like a kind of a shell shock to go back to.
Yeah, go back to 1. It's not really a that big of a shell shock because it is familiar, but it is so different that I'm one of those people that have to min-max builds when it comes to games like these. I have to get everything perfect. I have to know what stats I'm putting into where. I have to know what weapons I'm going for, the order. I literally have made out Google Keep files of just like a list of directions to take and like kind of like a personal checklist of stuff. So like whenever I start playing, it's like I have sorcerer steps and I like write down every single thing I have to go do to make this to play exactly how I want to play as a sorcerer.
Okay.
And then that way I follow this step, and this is kind of what I do when I'm at work is I make these mental notes of like, I know that if I start with Master Key and Sorcerer, I could easily go to Blighttown and get souls and green Titanite shards, or I can go to Valley of the Drakes and get the souls there, and then get the Grass Crest shield and stuff, and then make my way up through Undead Parish and get the basement key to go save Griggs early.
Sure.
I have to like map it out in my head, and then I'll write it down, and then that way I can perfect things and do things in a certain order. So whenever I do decide to do a Let's Play, or if I ever decide to do like an optimized run of that build, I know exactly what to do in exactly what order. And then that way, no level goes unused and no step or direction goes unwasted. It's all for a reason. And that's all I liked. I never will play a Souls game like this on my first playthrough, ever. Don't get me wrong. That's not how I want to play these games on the first playthrough. It's just Dark Souls 1 is the least familiar enough to me that it is the freshest. Like, it feels fresh. And I'm even going back to Dark Souls 2 after this to replay a Hex sorcery build because that's ridiculously OP in Dark Souls 2 still. And sorcery is in Dark Souls 1.
Yeah. And sorcery was crazy in Demon Souls too.
So I don't remember Demon Souls that well at all. Like, I want Demon Souls Remastered to come out just so I can remember it because I remember Tower of Latria.
So ironically,
is it Tower of Latria?
I mean, what are you talking about?
The area called Tower of Latria, I think.
It sounds familiar to me. Don't get me wrong, it's probably been okay. You've actually played it more recently than I have, but ironically enough, Demon Souls is the only one of the game in the whole series where I've played it multiple times.
Yeah, Tower of Latria is...
one once. I did not play 2. I just watched other people play
Knight.
It, and I played 3 once. So the only one I've ever restarted and played through again was Demon Souls, specifically because there was so much stuff around how easy it was if you were just a caster in the game. Magic was super OP in that game.
Not Latria. Where's Tower Knight at? Like, what is his area called? That's gonna really bother me now. It's one of those things.
That game needs to be remastered, if nothing else.
Because it's one of those things that's like I remember so much stuff from it, but it's so vague in my mind too. Like the jail area, I can't think of what that's called either. I think that's actually Tower of Latria that I'm thinking of. But yeah, it was one of those things. It's like it's almost like I never played that game.
Yeah,
the way I think about it, even
Sure.
though that like the final boss in that game was really really cool. Some of the final areas of that game weren't. But and after replaying through Dark Souls Remastered, kind of like, or actually just playing through Dark Souls 1, I guess the way to say this is that it's one of those things that's people always complain about Blighttown. Blighttown is nowhere near as bad as compared to the gutter in Dark Souls 2.
See, I'm
the
trying
gutter
to.
is
I can't remember the name of the
garbage.
place either. And even looking at here, it's not telling me what I thought it was. It's just saying what is already true. Obviously, that you're in the Baltarian Palace still, which I knew that.
I think that it might be what it's called.
Because it's the one,
Baltarian Castle, maybe, or something.
Maybe because what it is when because it's one of the earliest bosses.
It is the earliest boss.
Yeah,
I think that's where you start in Baltarian Palace.
Are you sure it's not the second boss?
Well, technically, there's a tutorial boss that you can't.
Yeah,
kill.
that's true. That you can't do anything about. Either way, he's the one that you come into, and there's a really large courtyard at the end of the second part that you can start going through. Because the game section off.
And then there's a staircase that leads up to edges on both sides with people shooting at you.
Yeah.
From what I remember, I don't know how many people are shooting at you, but yeah, it's a good game. Those are good series, but
yeah,
anyways,
it's just funny that's the only one I've replayed, and it's probably the one that you've not replayed.
No,
because you haven't played it since PS3.
No,
at that point.
I've only ever beaten that game once too.
Did you play? You didn't play any of the Souls games until Demon Souls, right?
Yes. Well, technically, I played Demon Souls first and then revisited it. Yeah. So technically, I have replayed it. I just didn't get far.
Did you play Demon
I played it
Souls?
On Seth's
That's
PS4
what I was going to ask.
when I played Metal Gear Solid 4
or PS3 rather,
or PS3. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I played it on PS3 whenever I played Metal Gear Solid 4.
Okay.
And
which means you were late to Metal Gear Solid 4 too, because Demon Souls came out in 09.
Yeah, because I didn't have a PS. Well, no, it was in 08 of when I played Metal Gear Solid 4. It's just when Seth left that PS4 at Dad's, and I would just play it there.
Okay, yeah.
Because he got it and he put movies on it, and then like I remember he got it and everybody was mad at him. He got it because I think that was like one of his first paychecks, and he went around asking everybody for advice to get it, and we were like, he never asked.
I thought he got it for Christmas.
No, not the.
Oh, wait, PS4 or PS3?
PS3.
The first PS3 he ever got was the Slim, and I went with him, and it was something to do. It wasn't even a paycheck. He wasn't working yet.
Okay, it was something that like he had extra money, and
I think RC gave him Christmas money and stuff like that.
That's what it was. RC gave him Christmas money, and RC said, "Don't buy a PS3 with this."
Oh yeah, and then we went to GameStop. I was with him when he bought it
because it was not. It was the second.
It was a Slim.
Complete. Yeah,
it was the first Slim model.
Yeah, which is my favorite model of PS3s.
Yeah, and I think.
Because as Josh said, I had the George Foreman girl PS3.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about that PS3.
The Super Slim, right?
Yeah, I got it brand new.
Ironically that we're talking about that on this episode.
But. Yeah, because it's going to come up later. I got it brand new. Never once moved it. And then all of a sudden there's all these little scratches all over it. I don't know what happened. And it's just like...
Did you have the white one or the black one?
Black one.
Yeah.
So it just showed everything.
Yeah.
But... Let's move on to news. We spent almost 30 minutes just talking about what we've been playing. I believe it's 22, 17.
22, yeah, it's cut off a little bit. Oh, well. Yeah, first thing up in news, since we have dropped the drop, as it were. Let's see. This one's pretty interesting. So, in talks of, if you watched the last reader mail, there was talk about VR and whatnot, and Saul saying he wanted to wait till a little bit more time with the Quest he has coming in, the Oculus Quest. But this is kind of more about the future of VR. So Sony have already confirmed plans for PSVR on PS5, as we all know. But we have some ideas as to what things they might be including in the eventual new headset via some patents they filed. So a while back, there was an interview with one of the people about it, and he talked about some of the things he'd like to see, but that wasn't necessarily confirmation if Sony was going to be doing it or not, or if it's just something they were remotely interested in. Now we know that there is at least some level of R&D going into it. So one patent shows a VR headset that can track your head position with a gyroscope and eye movements in real time, which is in line with things we've heard before and can be used for things like guessing what you are looking at on screen to better utilize resources by focusing on what you're looking at the moment instead of and putting more resources into that and kind of cutting resources from things that are in your peripheral. So going into that, that goes hand in hand with the thing that you're seeing in VR games now called foveated, something like that, rendering, which gives graphical precedent to the things that you are most likely to be looking at, the best they can guess from where your eyes are at, and reduces the quality of things that are in your peripheral vision to better allocate system resources and power and help GPU loading times. Couple this info together with some rumored leaked specs that have come out, and these are rumored, so don't take them with any further, take them with as much of a grain of salt as possible. But the rumored specs say that it will be a $250 price point with 1440p resolution screens and OLED screens instead of the 1080p that we have on the current VR unit for PS4. It'll have a 120 hertz refresh rate, which is what we have right now, a 220 degree field of view as opposed to the roughly 100 degree field of view in the current PSVR headset, which means that you'll have a lot more peripheral field of view, which is great. And we might be in for an even better VR future if those things are true. The only thing that seems a little weird to me is a $250 price point, but it does depend on when this comes. One of the things they've already confirmed in this, and Saul, you might remember from the article that we talked about probably a month ago, more than that now, was that they already confirmed that they are not going to be launching a new VR headset alongside the PS5, and instead they'll do like a staggered release like they did with the PS4. Let the system come out, let people get the system, a year or two later put out a new VR. That helps in a number of ways. It helps people go ahead and get the system, get familiar with the system, not feel like they're spending that much money at once, as well as later in the system's life giving a reason as to why people might buy it because of wanting VR. And then lastly, of course, gives it even more time. Let's say that the PS5 launches, and we know it's supposed to be next year, 2020. So we should not see a new VR headset until 2021 late, or maybe 2022 late.
Right.
And by that point, so many VRs have come and gone. The cost of these goods will start to come down as VR becomes more practical and tech gets more and more easy for them to go closer to a wireless solution.
Yeah, because we brought up Oculus Quest the last time on Reader Mail. We brought it up when we talked about this originally too a couple weeks ago. And that tech is crazy for only being $300, and it's completely wireless unless you're charging while you play. Yeah,
well, and that's the difference between the base model Oculus Rift is that...
Or is it 400?
I think, 400, was it for the unit by itself, or was that 400 with the bundle that you got?
Well, they come with, there's two of them. There's two different sizes. I think it's 64 and 128.
Yeah, but you got the bundle that came with the headset, or the hand controls, right?
They both come with it.
Oh, they come with it automatically.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's part of... Yeah, well, that makes sense, because you have to have it's not like a console where you'd have these things separately.
It's 400.
400
for the 64 gigabyte, and it's 500 for the 128 gigabyte.
But it comes with the controllers. I think that's fair enough to say that the headset's essentially $300 and you're paying $100 for two controllers.
Yeah, and you get the charging cable, the
you have
power
to have
adapter. I think you get you don't get a case with this, because I remember looking at the case
for
it.
There's a number of things here. What does this $250 price point accompany? Is it just a headset? Is it headset and controllers? Is there going to be a new controller?
We don't really know.
It gets weird because you will have the DualShock 5, what you'd imagine it'd be called, to play with in this situation, whereas the Oculus Quest is completely by itself. It renders and does everything by itself.
And controllers are $70 a piece.
By the way, I want you to know, just because this is completely off foot, the Switch controllers, the Joy-Cons, are $80 for a pair.
Are they really? So I must have been looking at SL on Best Buy that night then.
Yep. So they have not dropped. I knew
That's ridiculous.
It is. So, aside from the point, but yeah, in this situation, you're paying for controllers because it does all the rendering and everything by itself. It's not hooked up to the computer; it doesn't. So you have to have controllers that go with it. Otherwise, you have no input at all.
Yeah.
Whereas with the PSVR, if they're looking at $250, that's probably just for the headset. Very similar to how they sold bundles with Move controllers early on, but you could also just buy the headset.
Can we please get some analog sticks on their Move controllers?
I'm imagining that's what's going to happen as they start to move away from the Move stuff.
I don't see
how
it
looks like they're going to move away from the lights as much.
Good, because it shouldn't be required. No other headset in the world requires that.
At the time, it made sense because
it didn't, because nobody else did lights.
Well, they had the technology already there, and they were doing it pretty early.
Yeah.
Considering that there's no competition in the console space specifically, it's kind of hard to say that they did something wrong. Because it's, perfect example. I brought my dad in yesterday.
Well, they did it differently that I don't agree with. I guess
they did, but they also did it in a way that was way more cost effective. Not having to have multiple extra cameras to triangulate your position, and using technology you already R&D'd, you're done. You don't have to think about these things. Now all the R&D goes into how do we make this work as a unit that fits in your head instead of how does VR work at all.
Yeah,
they had already figured that out.
If Oculus can figure it out to put it all pretty much between your phone and your headset, I'm sure that they could do something like one cable.
No, they could, but we're also talking about something that's made to set. The PSVR is down to $300 now as a price, and that gets bundled in with games and controllers a lot.
It does.
My dad just bought. That goes to show you. In one day, this goes to show you how much I think. I think even maybe you to some extent, because you've not played any of the newer games yet, hit with it.
Excuse me.
I let Dad try Gran Turismo, which he loves Gran Turismo.
I played that.
So he did Gran Turismo.
I played it with your steering wheel.
Yeah, but you didn't play it in VR.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
You had your steering wheel set up, and
I had the steering wheel set up. I have not. The last time that you were over, when I had that set up, I didn't even have my VR set up at the time.
Are you sure?
Yeah, positive. But it doesn't matter. I've only done it once, and I love it, but it takes a lot of work to get set up and going.
It does.
And I need a better table for my wheel. All those things aside, though, I let my dad play just with a DualShock and the thing, and that was enough for him to be like, oh, wow. Then I let him play Firewall, which has massive updates. The UI and stuff I talked about, the game looks so much sleeker and way more like a counterpart to Rainbow Six now, which is amazing. But I let him play that, and between those two things, he literally went from saying, oh, VR
Gimmicky
looks cool,
to
immediately when he got it off his head, he was like, can you look up who in town has one and what bundles they have? And he already has Gran Turismo, so he bought the Blood and Truth and
is that
Hot
motorcycle
Shots
was out here
Golf.
the other day? No,
it's Traces.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he bought the bundle that came with Blood and Truth, the new game. It comes with 2 Move controllers. It came with Everybody's Golf, so Hot Shots Golf VR essentially.
Yeah, it's a good game.
And headset, and then he got the Firewall bundle that came with the game and the controller, both of which were at Best Buy for $450. It's pretty good.
That's not bad at all. Yeah,
pretty good.
And
he already has a PS4.
Yeah,
so
I wouldn't probably purchase one unless I saw if I saw it go down to $200 with like Firewall and Beat Saber included. I'd probably pick one up for that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty
just
dope
for those
point.
2 games.
But, it's interesting. And the thing about the Quest is brand new and it does all the stuff by itself. It doesn't have something else.
Yeah, it's so much easier just to like. That I can literally just pick up, put the headset on,
essentially,
and I'm done.
If you think about it right now, it's the only way that you can have a truly wireless setup is to let it do all the rendering and whatnot in itself, which means it's not as powerful.
Yeah, and I think
that
what was the other one? Vive is coming out with one soon. It's what it's rumored. I don't think that's confirmed by any means. But
that's HTC's solution.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't care about VR, we will move on from that. But I do find that section pretty interesting.
We'll move on to this. Something about almost killed my PS4. I didn't tell you about that. Go ahead.
You almost killed your PS4?
No, I didn't.
With this update?
Sony did.
All right. Sony pushed out update 6.72 for PS4. The update weighs in at 440 megabytes and just improves system performance as opposed to what they were doing for the long time, that sweet system stability, which to me shows that Sony is likely done with big firmwares that add notable features for the remainder of the PS4's life cycle. It just seems obvious at this point that the last big one they did really wasn't even as big as the ones prior, and PS5 is a year away. It gets to the point where it's like, why focus on the PS4 at this point? It's got enough units out there. The UI and the system features are pretty robust. We're in a good spot. It would be nice to see them keep adding stuff because it does feel like there is more obvious steps that they could do.
Yeah.
And some ways that I think that they should get more close to what the PS3 had that we still don't have feature set wise in the PS4, but we're closer than we've ever been. And there's some great stuff PS4 introduced. It is what it is. But what happened to your system?
It wouldn't install the update. And then when it finally, so I'll turn my PS4 on and I noticed that at the bottom of the screen said connect to the internet.
Okay.
So I'm like, I have an update. So that's immediately what I know is that if I'm watching a video on YouTube on my other monitor, and it says connect to internet, I know there's an update because my internet's working perfectly fine. So I click down on D-pad, connect to internet, and it says system update, would you like to install? And I said start download, and then I went to the update and restart button. There's like 2 buttons. It's like the one at the bottom's like later, one was the top one, and then it did a little bar and it said unable to download or unable to install. And I was like, okay, this is weird. So I kept clicking it and it kept doing it. And of course, you can't connect to the internet on your PS4 at this point. So I went back and restarted my PS4, tried to do it again. Couldn't install. The 3rd time, I was like, I'm going to try this one more time, then I'm going to restart my PS4 again. It got to the very end and my PS4 just froze. I had to unplug the power cable and power cycle the PS4 basically to get it to go back on and boot it in safe mode.
That's what I'm about to ask.
Yeah, and then I had to restore my licenses, which took almost 3 hours. So I got really mad.
I don't blame you.
I really thought that I just somehow bricked my console because I was looking online. I was like, of people that had to do this, and they were like, "Yeah, it worked fine for me until I restarted my license. Then it got stuck on like 83%, and my PS4 would never turn back on." I'm like, "Well, that's cool. I hope I don't get stuck on anything." I didn't.
Yeah, that's weird. I almost wonder what the situation with that is. I mean,
just think I downloaded a bad version of the software. Like I think my PS4 just didn't properly and download it properly.
Or just wouldn't read it properly,
it wouldn't
unpack
install
it
it properly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, next up, despite its exclusivity to the PS4, Insomniac's Spider-Man game has become the best-selling superhero game ever, beating out the previous record holder from Batman Arkham City.
Congratulations.
So,
Insomniac.
yeah, that's amazing considering that Arkham was it came late in the Arkham City was late in the PS3 Xbox gen. It had close to 80 million Xboxes and close to 80 million PlayStations. It had a remaster. It's pretty amazing. So, yeah, congratulations.
You can get some sleep now.
Yeah. Next up, Kingdom Hearts 3, while we're on the thing of records, is now the best-selling game in the franchise, according to MPD. It was already the fastest-selling game in the series, but has now beat out the original game as the best-selling as well. That was one of the crazy things about Kingdom Hearts, is that it's a really beloved series, but no game released since the first game had beat out the first game's sales.
Nope.
So
we talked about that plenty, too. We even gave predictions on if it would sell or not. I believe we both said it would.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought so too, just because of where gaming's at and whatnot.
Yeah,
but I remember that was in light of Corey, one of our friends and patrons. Thank you, good sir. I remember he was, we were talking about predictions as to how much it would sell, and he went really high.
Yeah, I think he said like 20 million.
Yeah, and I just thought too much. And now, even in light of all this stuff that's been going on, I still think that Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to be on the end of its legs here pretty soon. I would be not surprised if it hits up to 10 million. And that's still impressive. It's mighty impressive. And I know that Square Enix would be completely happy with that. So either way, good for Kingdom Hearts, doing a good job. And really, it's great that this game came out and did this well, because it means that the future that they've teased is much more likely to happen, and Square sees a real reason for it to come. These sales just reinforce even better. Hey, let's keep going with Kingdom Hearts and maybe even make them quicker than we did.
Yeah.
Bam. Who knows? Next up, one last sales record being set comes in the way of Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. The game had the best launch month in the history of the Crash series as a whole, beating out Crash Insane Trilogy's record set back in 2017 when that launched. So both of those, it's crazy to see how much nostalgia is just killing it in gaming right now, for better or for worse sometimes, Next up, while still talking about older games that are coming back around, Final Fantasy VIII was revealed for this year during Square Enix's E3 press conference, but no for sure date was given. With the ESRB giving the game a rating, it is likely soon that we will be given an official date in the coming days and weeks, and I would imagine that the date will be pretty soon. So I would say that you'll probably have this game on your system, I'm going to say by September.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If not,
and that was already close to where I want. September's kind of loaded, so I'm thinking maybe late August.
That's what I was going to say. Early October.
Maybe. That seems to be getting a little too close to the window of the holiday season. But I guess the one thing that happens is that you think about it too much in the idea of like a normal game that's coming out and trying to compete with others in the big season. But a remaster is a very particular market. It's like
it doesn't really stand with it.
It doesn't cost
especially
the same.
Being a weird combination of what it is. It's a PlayStation 1 remaster. It's a Final Fantasy remaster. It's
for the first time ever.
Remaster.
It's coming to Nintendo Switch and Xbox One.
So it's a very, very different
or to
combination
Nintendo or Xbox consoles, but
of ingredients for that one. So it's weird.
Yeah. So
this is what I'm super excited for. Oh boy.
What are you super excited for? 8?
No, the next part.
Okay, I'm making sure because. Honestly, if you told me you were excited for this one, I'd believe you more than if you said you were excited for 8, because you trash on 8 constantly.
I do.
But with that said,
trash on with love.
While we're talking about remakes, remasters, and all that, previously, Wii exclusive entry in the Super Monkey Ball series, Banana Blitz, is making its way to current gen systems via a remaster that will, of course, be called Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz HD.
If you've never played Super Monkey Ball, buy this game. It's super fun.
See, I played the PSP one. I liked it, but I've never just been a huge fan of the series.
Me and Seth had, I believe we owned 3 over the cross of our GameCube, maybe 2.
Okay.
But they were really, really fun games. And they had really fun mini games, like where you could essentially play pool, but with the Super Monkey Balls. It was really cool.
And you'd be like in a first person, or not first person.
It was like third person, but real close.
Really close to the ball, yeah.
If not like inside the ball in a way, but
kind of, yeah. So anyway, fun fact for that: this will make the first time that the series has been on a home console in 9 years, because that series almost always gets an iteration on any handheld that comes out.
I know I want one on Switch, which I don't know if this one's coming to Switch or not, but I will probably pick it up on PlayStation 4.
It is coming to Switch, PS4, Xbox One, PC.
I might pick it up on Switch, but
Sega has really been going after getting their games on PC. This is kind of a weird PC release.
It is.
But Sega's been going after, hey, let's do stuff on PC, so that's cool.
And I have Fire Emblem next week. I don't know if I'll be... Ooh, that's a lot of games.
All right. Next up, Marvel Avengers gameplay, which we talked about, was previously shown only to San Diego Comic-Con attendees this last week, will be officially released publicly a week after Gamescom. And Gamescom, if you don't know, is the annual trade show that takes place every year in August in Germany. So
It looks like garbage.
as I was about to say, there are bits of leaked gameplay available online right now, but the full bit will be able to be seen in just around a
In
month.
what world can Thor hit like police officers with his hammer and just not instantly kill them or knock them away? This dude's over here comboing them 6 or 7 times with a hammer. They're just standing there taking it.
That brings me to a really interesting point
The
of
game
something I
looks
already
terrible.
wanted to get to. How often in games do we suspend disbelief just for the sake of mechanical things that feel better to you?
We're technically doing a lot with superhero games because it's like you beat them like 8 or 9 times and you throw them and then they get back up. It's like, no,
Yeah,
I'm not getting back up.
exactly.
I'm playing dead. But this
Exactly.
is just like too far. It looks cheesy. None
I
of the voice work is good.
I
and
chose
that's
not to
sad.
watch it, so I don't know.
Oh, dude, none of the voice work to me is good. And that's coming from, of course, Troy Baker.
It's a pretty good cast.
It's a very good cast.
So,
That's
I
what
mean-
gets me. And then like everything just looks bland. It doesn't look like. Okay, here's the perfect example of what this game looks like to me.
You're making me almost want to watch it, but I'm going to wait for the official
No,
reveal, so I'm going to have to watch it from a side cell phone cutting in and out.
It's the same thing. But you remember when we saw on like E3 2016, I think, maybe 17, we saw Marvel versus Capcom or whatever, and we were like, these characters look weird.
Yes.
It's the same thing. The characters look and sound weird. The gameplay looks, there's just something off about it. It doesn't look good.
When is that game set? 2020? Early 2020? Is that right? For release?
No. I thought it was coming out this year.
No, I don't think so.
You sure? I really thought.
Marvel's Avengers.
Speaking of Avengers, they beat Avatar for once.
Did they?
Yeah.
May 15th, 2020 is a release.
Jeez, man, that game is so.
I'm gonna-
at least I can give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it's so far out, almost a year
That
out.
this is probably a year. Well, and realistically,
can
with
fix-
what they're showing, this is probably from a build that's a couple months old.
I just now realized too that they are showing stuff a year in advance.
Yeah. Well, almost technically. May they first showed it in June.
June, yeah.
So yeah,
This is gameplay they've had ready since then. I'm sure. Of it.
exactly. You're probably talking about gameplay that came from a build that's a couple months old. So yeah, you're probably
Yeah.
talking about a year in advance. So there really is a lot that can change.
Yeah. So hopefully that's what happens.
Which
But,
I mean, we saw a little bit of change with Marvel versus Capcom while you're actually bringing it.
yeah, they
But
changed.
despite the fact that it got a lot better for a lot of people, the game still didn't sell.
Hey,
very well.
we're talking about game design basically, not talking about the game as in terms of a fighting game. We're talking about the design of the characters.
Well, and just like animations and how weird they looked for a lot of people early on. They got better closer to the game's release.
Yeah, that
but
kind of fits in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the
for a
mechanics of
AAA
fighting.
game, it looked
Iffy.
rough to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's reasonable. and
it looked
I don't really
unfamiliar
mind that.
for the series and its characters.
And I guess even in comparison to what Marvel did with partnering with Insomniac with Spider-Man, I don't think Spider-Man ever looked janky to me. That's the thing. Like,
No, it had pacing issues, sure, but the gameplay.
Yeah, but I meant
The-
even when they were just showing it,
No, I was
like
going to say the
promotional
animations,
stuff.
all
Yeah.
that stuff was perfect.
The first time they even showed it, it looked amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
which
just-
maybe that's because you're focusing on one hero instead of
What's
6
crazy is that
or 5.
everybody always says, "Oh, PlayStation doesn't have action games; they have story games." It's like this game nailed the action, but was terrible in the story.
It's terrible in
terrible,
story pacing.
yeah, terrible is.
Yeah,
harsh.
terrible is even a hard word because I like the game.
It was
I mean,
mediocre pacing.
yeah. The game is still a solid 8.
I want you to watch the Avengers trailer when we're done here.
Fine. All right. Anyway, moving on. Sony's long-running San Diego studio, who you most likely know because of their work on the MLB The Show series that they do every year, has gotten a new logo and a new office following behind many other first-party studios from Sony that have upgraded in recent years, such as Sony Santa Monica, Sony Bend most recently, and Guerrilla Games, all moving into new buildings as well. There is a new unit within the studio that is the one that has been rumored forever to be working on its own original Uncharted game in collaboration with Naughty Dog. It's still not been confirmed, but it remains to be a rumor. This move might have been to accommodate the scale needed for such a product. So if you're thinking about a team that's already been around doing this yearly baseball game and some other smaller things with internal dev stuff or external development help. When you're thinking about bringing in a new studio to that and then handing them the reins of something like Uncharted, that is a huge game. And if you're going to do that, you have to have the room to house the people needed to make a game of that scale. So yeah, that kind of does make me think that it's very likely that we'll see something on that soon. Probably a PS5 game.
Probably so.
Yep.
I would think so.
This all goes in line though with Jim Ryan, the new president for Sony, worldwide, I want to say. Anyway, recent assertion that PlayStation is continuing to invest in its first party as exclusivity becomes more important to the business, which is interesting because there was somebody from Indie Crates, one of the developers behind different things, different little indie games, and they were saying that exclusivity is becoming less important and will be a hamper. I think I disagree. I actually agree with Jim Ryan on this one. And that is in light of one very specific reason. We've been talking a lot about streaming and stuff lately, but when you're getting to a point where something like Netflix is losing and Hulu are losing access to all these shows that people have loved that are from different people, the only reason now that Netflix will be able to keep people is with really compelling exclusivity.
Well, I do think that,
and I think that's the same with consoles.
I think that there's a twist on that what I will say is that exclusives are becoming more and more relevant the more and more manufacturers go to application-based services.
Oh, yeah, definitely somebody like Microsoft in this case.
So it really, I think, going to come down to a battle of Sony versus Nintendo versus the services that they can provide, which is crazy because there's a lot of stuff going on right now that I've seen Sony fans complain that Sony is doing that Nintendo's doing perfectly, like censorship and stuff like that.
Yes,
is like something that people are. I did not realize how many people were mad over that. But
over
it's like
the censorship,
so many different people complaining about it, and I'm just like, I get it. I do. Go back and watch our censorship episode. I agree with everything. I just didn't realize that Nintendo didn't care anymore. Like their games, for being Nintendo, it's like they switched.
Yes.
It's crazy. But anyways, on to the next one, because I'm actually curious about the next one.
And even then, what I think really happened in that situation, and then we can move on, is
Doug Bowser.
Well, no, I think what ended up happening is that Nintendo realized that this was a really easy chance for them to strong arm, and that more adults, they could look at the numbers, the Switch sold most to adults over 30. So they knew that a lot of their early days at least, so they knew they had a large group of people who would not care about the adult content, and that they could steal away from some business that Sony's been locking down with the Vita and the PS4 with some of these fan service games and these little niche titles, and then go, you know what? This is an easy power play to do. It makes us look good on HR. It gives us new customers that will come over and support us because of the move and who are going to be boycotting Sony. It was a win-win for Nintendo.
Not only that, but like think back to the Switch Lite commercial.
Yeah.
How many kids were in that commercial?
Yeah, hardly anybody. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if I ever... There was one kid.
It's funny. That's what I'm saying. It's funny that people are like, oh, this is for kids. When I get that, yeah, it makes more sense for a kid to have that. Nintendo's not making that like they made the 2DS.
Yes.
2DS was a clear divide on like, this is going to be mainly for kids versus
and
the
young
Switch Lite,
kids
which
too.
are for the people who wants a handheld.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, that's...
Man, that's interesting. One last little bit about what we were talking about, though, with the new San Diego studio logo. And I just thought this was interesting. So I don't know if it's on accident or on purpose, and this could be something they just did as a cool little throwback, but the new logo for the thing is like essentially an S that's cut out from a D that goes all the way through, and you could just look it up. But while you're at looking that up, also look up the old logo that Sony did for the Super Disc that they used during their partnership with Nintendo for the disc-based add-on for the SNES that ended up becoming the PlayStation 1 that eventually went sour, of course, between Sony and Nintendo.
Interesting to bring back up Nintendo. This conversation went full circle.
Very much so. So go check that out. It's pretty interesting. And Saul, you should look at it too while we're sitting there. It's really, it's essentially like if you were doing it with modern font. Yeah, but it's the same basic idea. So that's cool, and maybe a little throwback to history, or it could just be accidental because it is a pretty solid logo design.
You act like I don't look at the news during the week, even though this news I think only happened yesterday. You put it
it's pretty quickly. Anyway, next up, Sumo Digital, the studio most recently behind not most recently actually, behind Crackdown 3, Little Big Planet 3, and most recently Team Sonic Racing, have announced that they are working with 2K Games on an unannounced project. So there you go.
NBA 2K kart racer.
You play as LeBron James in a cart that has basketball wheels. Or would it be basketball shoes that are like running fast?
It'll be basketball shoes that are running fast.
You like that, don't you?
For those that don't know, I just ripped off you couldn't even see it on my laptop for even audio. I ripped off one of those pieces of plastic film that adhere to plastics or glass, and just like, it's just,
Now, as equally amazing as it is when you get that off in one go and just love the way it feels, when you rip it and then have to like pick at it to get the rest of it off, that's like equally. It's like
that's what started.
It's the highest of high
to it,
and then the lowest of lows.
It's the opposite. I had to pick at it to get to a fine line started. Then I could just rip it off. So I started out bad. It ended phenomenally.
Well, that's good. That's why you want to do it, right?
Excited about little plastic cable pieces.
It's essentially Days Gone. It started off rough, but you know what? It ended up really good at the end.
I'm glad you.
One of these days you'll play it and understand.
One of the days I'll have enough free time of not playing Overwatch and maybe The Witcher after you didn't put the Witcher Netflix trailer in there, but that's okay because that's not news.
Yeah. I feel
it's
like
not really. Yeah, it's kind of.
We've covered the fact that it's coming enough, and here's the bigger thing. If we're going to bring that in the news, we can go ahead and talk about the fact that Netflix has very specifically said that they are not adapting this off of the video games, and instead,
it's the books.
Specifically, one book right now.
Right, it's the very first book.
Yeah, The Last Wish or something like that.
I think it's The Last Winds or something like that.
I'm over here probably thinking conflating Destiny stuff with it. The Last Wish is Destiny stuff. Anyway, while Saul's looking that up, the upcoming Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Oh, it is The Last Wish.
Okay, I thought so, but
I'm getting confused with The Winds of Winter, which is a Game of Thrones book.
I figured that was a Game of Thrones book. The upcoming Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which is the action RPG that was originally called Dragon Ball Action RPG, has revealed that there will be other playable characters and not just Goku in the game.
Why does this have to be revealed at this point? I get that it's a Dragon Ball RPG, but I mean,
the reason
Legacy of Goku games had playable characters, except the first one.
I think the biggest reason is that I've said since they first said the name Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is really a terrible name because it implies that you're going to play as Goku, which is doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Well, I figured it would be his story, which would probably go to the Buu saga, which I don't think is confirmed where it's going yet.
Yeah, they haven't said.
So I do think that you could play as key characters and key moments. Like it'd be cool to play as Trunks during
maybe
the Freeze
it sounds
Cell
so.
Saga.
Right now, the characters that they've said for sure doing it, the characters include Vegeta, Piccolo, and Gohan, who are also support characters in the game, which makes me think that this may not actually go anywhere further than just the end of the Frieza saga.
Or if they confirm that Trunks
that would
is there,
be Saiyan Saga, Frieza saga.
Well, if you confirm Trunks is there, we know we're in the Cell Saga.
That's true, but they haven't said that yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that if they say it, they don't have anything left to reveal in terms of that.
That's true.
Can you imagine playing as Trunks as he time travels back to save them?
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting. But see, they've not also confirmed whether you're going to play as the other characters in key moments or if you can freely switch between the two of them. Or if it's a party system similar to what Final Fantasy's doing with the remake.
I don't want that, no.
Where you can play Goku and then switch in real time to Piccolo.
I want to play full sequences of Goku. I don't have to worry about changing parties. Please.
Well, you don't have to if you don't want to.
I don't.
Just like in Final Fantasy VII Remake, essentially, if you wanted to, or it's like Tales of games. You can always switch to the other characters, but I just don't even do that.
I don't either.
For me, in the Tales of games, or what I'll do in Final Fantasy VII Remake, I most likely will never end up switching to Barret or anybody else. I'll just be like, I'll play as Cloud the whole time.
I think the only time I've ever done that was changing my party.
I could be wrong. We'll see. I may try it.
My party order, I changed it to Balthier in 12 for a bit instead of playing as Vaughn.
And that lets you play as him. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it lets you play as him.
It puts his character model as the main walk-around character model.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's something to think about. Last up, though, Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford, crazy as he is, has come out to explain that despite the current state of crossplay looking clean across all three platform holders, Borderlands 3 will not be supporting the feature at launch. He insists that they are committed to the feature as soon as practical after launch. So it does sound like we'll get it, but if you were hoping to be able to play co-op with your friends across Xbox and PlayStation at launch, sorry, not going to happen. So that is the end of the news. Hope you guys enjoyed it. There's a couple things I specifically chose to leave out. Just going to get to the point where it's like, do I really need to know that Rage 2 is adding 3 more gameplay modes? You know, the game's kind of come and gone and didn't really make a big splash. Even though I love Darksiders 3, it's not a huge game. Its new DLC is out. These are things, if you care about, there you go. You have a little bit more news for you.
If you follow our website, finalweapon.net on Twitter.
Bam. Maybe you'll see these things right there.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You could skip the news segment entirely and just get to the juicy parts.
Ooh. Yeah. Anyway, so with that said, I guess it's time to move on into the main topic. And Saul, do you have it up on Twitter so we can read the question that it's from, just in case the people don't watch Reader Mail?
Well, no, but see, what I could do very genuinely, because nobody is going to realize it, is I can almost just kind of go through and talk and act like I'm looking for it and pulling it up, but it's also distracting, but you hear my voice, so that's not where it really matters. What I also did wrong was I unpinned the tweet and it went all the way down to the bottom. But our good buddy No Fate, Sean Neo, a Patreon of ours, says, do you think Sony will make a slimmer PS4/Pro at some point? I like how he put the slash in there because he's insinuating a slimmer base model than what the Slim already is.
Yep.
Or a PS4 Pro Slim. So this kind of opened up a conversation that do we think we'll see hardware iterations of any kind in the rest of this lifetime for the PlayStation 4? And that could be for the Pro, for the Slim, for the very normal one. They could actually, they did discontinue that SKU, didn't they?
Which
the original
one?
SKU.
Of the place, they always do.
Okay, that's
so
what
whenever
I
a Slim comes,
they'll just
Slim is essentially the word that people who are
Revised
fans have
version.
put on it.
Yeah.
As far as Sony's concerned, it's not called a PS4 Slim. It's just called a PlayStation 4.
It's just the base model, yeah.
But we say Slim as
what it
fans
is.
because it helps us know whether we're talking about you playing on the Slim, the smaller revised version. And that's a little bit weird too, right? Because one of the things about the word revision is that there are revisions of the models before they even get a shell change is essentially what I'm going to call it. So, the base model PlayStation 4 came with the matte on one side and then the high gloss on the hard drive cover. Then when you look at that, they eventually did one where it was matte on both the hard drive cover and the main body of the PlayStation, but it kept the same form factor. And eventually we ended up getting to the Slim. The Slim, with its actual form factor change, has also had its own revisions. And the PlayStation 4 Pro also has had a revision with the Red Dead Redemption 2 bundle being the first one that has a quieter and more efficient fan.
Right.
So when you think about it, there have been revisions, but they've not been revisions of the sort that you would expect to see when you actually you'll start to say, that's the PS4 Slim, because it's going to be a word that we have to attach to it so that we can understand what you're playing on or what you might be selling me or what I'm selling. It's important for that. What?
Nothing. I just saw something on Twitter. It's like, it looks similar to something else.
Oh, yeah.
Very similar.
Oh, well.
Not that it's a bad thing,
No.
but it's actually kind of cool if that's what it came from. I doubt it. But anyways, so like it kind of opens up the floor, and I want to hear from you guys too, whether it's in the comments of the YouTube video or it's in our Discord or through Twitter or on our Facebook, all these places that you guys can chat with us. Is that what do you guys think in terms of a revision? Because I honestly don't think we'll get anything, especially on a PS4 Pro level. Now, what I think would be cool is it's almost impossible for this to happen, but wouldn't it be cool if they took the PS4 Slim and they shrunk it down to almost the size of the PSVR unit?
God, that would be insanity. But
It would be. It's very possible.
Well, I don't know about that. As much as I'm going to say,
Well, I was going to say, depending on
the die.
It's just how close you want to get to the size of that. Like maybe double the size and have it the size of like a Wii U. That'd even be doable, I think. 'Cause you can definitely.
The Wii U was so long. You remember that? It wasn't very wide.
It was about that
It was
long.
like this wide, but it was like that
It
long.
wasn't that long. About that long. It was about a foot long.
Did you get it from Subway?
I wanted some Sonic. No, ew. Don't you disgrace.
Nintendo by talking about Subway, or don't disgrace Subway by talking about Nintendo?
First of all, Subway's disgusting food.
Okay, that's where I thought you were going with that. I just wanted to be
Get you
sure.
some cheese sticks and like a hot fudge milkshake. Yes, a hot fudge milkshake is a real thing. Thank me later. It's the best milkshake you will ever have. And get some fried mozzarella sticks. But anyways,
Why did Sonic come into there?
because you're talking about footlongs, and it's a footlong coney, their signature item. You're going to talk about footlong subs.
I think that if you're talking about
Nasty.
signature, I don't think that Sonic has had an entire multi-decade long, at this point, commercial series that was run about $5 footlongs. I'm pretty sure if you were saying footlong and you went to people and said, what does the word footlong immediately make you think of? 9 times out of 10, they'll say Subway.
No, because Subway doesn't exist.
Okay. In the world that you exist in?
In the world that I exist in, nobody wants that nasty old meat sandwiches. They're also not made out of yoga mats. For anybody who thinks that that's a thing, that's actually a myth. But no, like I want a small PS. It would be cool. It would not be for me. I would not be a consumer for this. But I want to see a really, really small PS4 Slim that people can take around traveling and such. And in my head, it's a terrible idea because it would almost fail always at this. But wouldn't it be cool if it came with a built-in HDMI cord that you could pull out of the back and it would just kind of be wound into the system? It wouldn't fit.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
It does sound like a terrible idea, but it'd be cool when you think about it.
I know.
My coffee maker has that. And I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, why don't consoles have this? I'm like, oh, probably would break and nobody would be able to repair it. But I was like, man, this is
what
cool.
would happen? It'd break and you'd void your warranty trying to open it up to fix it.
Yeah, but
that would be the issue.
But think about it. Like, think if every single cable in a PlayStation 4 could just come out of the system and just wind back in.
Here's a good question for that. And as a kind of like a question to answer your question, how many people genuinely take their PlayStation 4 around to other people's houses?
Well, no, it's not to other houses like that, because that could be
or to other rooms. How often do people move their PlayStation 4?
It's not room. It's for like influencers and stuff who want to take their PS4s with them when they travel. And so I could take it with me, and it could fit in my laptop, and maybe take up half of the top of my laptop for those that are watching to get a good idea. And then I could literally just use USB-C to connect it and play off my laptop.
With your laptop as a monitor?
Yeah.
Assuming that your laptop had the functionality required to do that.
I think it does. But
it just depends. Mine doesn't have an HDMI in. Mine has HDMI out.
I think we actually talked about this one day. And I think I found out mine didn't have that either.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yours just has an out.
I'll buy a converter.
Okay. I don't know how you do that.
I think you can buy a USB-C to HDMI in converter, I think.
Well, then you have to have a USB-C that's rated to send the video out.
Buy a hub.
Anyway, we're losing the forest for the trees a little bit. But
it would be cool to have that. Like,
think about it this way. Do you remember, in terms of going small, going back to the idea of how small could they realistically make it? And your assertion early was the size of, if anybody has a PSVR, you understand what he's referencing, but the size of the breakout box for the PSVR unit.
Yeah, it's essentially
which looks
the size
like a
of
mini PS4 launch.
Yeah, it's very small. It's about, I'd say, what, 5 inches?
It's a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah, I was going to say, about 5 inches wide and about 6 inches deep.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. Hard to say 6 inches deep without getting a little naughty. But yeah, I think that it's so 5x6, and it's really cool looking. And like, it would be really cool to know, and I know it's coming because you
know what's coming.
The small consoles is a thing, because you can already buy like PCs and get micro ATX and get real super small PCs and such. And it's the tech is there, but I don't really know. It's more of a novelty.
Is it disk drive? See, in this situation, it almost have to be a digital only model.
Obviously it's 5x6. I don't even know if 5x6 would fit a disc tray in that.
I don't know.
You're carrying it around too, so think about it. It could be your portable PlayStation 4 Pro.
God.
Your portable.
Oh no, not a Pro. Not a Pro.
No, it's not a Pro.
The Pro will not be that small.
Portable PlayStation 4 Slim, and essentially they could even sell screens for it. That you could have like it could have
this reminds me so much of when PlayStation did the PS1 that had the pop-up TV on top of it.
That's what I'm thinking.
No, it was a terrible TV.
No, it doesn't matter.
It was cool to have, but it was like the moment you started playing games on it, you were like, "This was terrible." Who would want to play this game on this terrible 480p?
You could have a bracket that you could buy that you can mount it on the back of a monitor, and it holds the system.
I just feel like this is going into stuff that most people wouldn't really want to do.
No, well, obviously not. I'm thinking of fun things. I'm not thinking of like, I'm not taking this as like a serious subject, because I truly don't think, and I said this, I don't think that we're going to get another revision at all.
Okay, well, look, I'll start from the point of...
I'm going to stretch real quick while you start from a point.
Okay, we can start from the point of answering the question, which
My audio is going to be terrible. I apologize. I don't know why I keep hitting the mic this episode.
And you're about to do it again. But, no, I guess from the beginning point of, do we think it's going to happen or not? I lean on the side of no. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's impossible. It's just, you have to look at, the question starts to become, why even make a slim model revision in the first place? What is the point of doing a console revision to the point where you change the form factor and everything? A lot of it comes down to trying to lower the cost to manufacture the system. Use newer components that let you take up less room so that you get less plastic. The less plastic you have to spend, the more that you save, and then you can drop the price by a certain amount, making the system feel more lucrative to people, or more appealing to a customer of like, oh man, I can finally get a PS4 now. I've not gotten one this whole generation, but now that we're so late in the generation, there's all these great games. This is the move that's all about the patient gamer. These are always what these are about. And it's first and foremost about the patient gamer, and then secondarily about people who maybe bought a launch unit and have not upgraded, and their system might have, for some reason, just naturally crapped the bed. You know, it's like you get into that point, or maybe they just go, well, this is the old one. It's got loud fans. I've been dealing with it a long time. This new one's more energy efficient. It's got better fans, and does all the things I needed to do. So when you look at that across the board, I think that there is a market for a slim, and you got to look. It starts to be timing as well. The Super Slim, which is essentially what we're talking about, well, there'll be another slim iteration of the normal base model PS4. The Super Slim PS3 came out in September of 2012. And when you look at that, that was a year and a month before the actual release of the PS4.
I got that right at launch then.
Yes, you did.
Wow.
Right when it came out. Because me and you bought ours very similar time. I bought the white one with a 500 gig hard drive.
And I bought the Drake's Uncharted bundle with like 250 gig hard drive. I think.
They came with Uncharted 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, when you look at that, we're talking about a year before the announcement, launch, and everything of the PS4. The PS4 was in people's hands a year and a month, or about a year and 2 months later. So that leads us to the point of, let's say that we get a similar release date for the PS5, and we're talking November of 2020, which is a very highly likely window for the system. If you're looking at that, we would need to be hearing about this within reason in about a month or two.
Yeah, essentially.
So it's going to be, if it's going to happen, my answer leans on there's a much less chance that a PS4 Pro Slim will happen, due to the fact that the Pro already caters to I'm not going to say very small, but it caters to a small group of gamers who care so much about power that they're willing to pay more money for better hardware. I think what you've already seen the fix that you really need in that, which is to give it better fans and whatnot, keep it from being so loud and overheating as much, which is exactly what you want. More of what they're doing is trying to cater into the people who are wanting to buy a PlayStation 4 who haven't done it, and I think the best way to do that is with the super slim model, the base model. You can lower the price even more. We might be able to finally get that price for the PS4 to be $250 instead of $300. You can do that with a system that is significantly smaller, using a 14 nanometer die, and that's actually the size of the CPU, which means it uses less energy, which means it doesn't have to have as big of a power supply, which means that it doesn't have to have as big of a piece of plastic to hold the chip that it's running on. All these different things come into effect, and then they could even do something like they did on the PS3 Super Slim to cut the price even further, where the PS1 and the PS3 Model 1 and the PS3 Model 2 both had optical drives where you'd put the disc in and it would suck it in.
Can it have grill marks on the top?
But the Super Slim model looked like a George Foreman grill, and there was a button and it would slide the top over and you'd physically place the disc in.
Which I actually didn't mind that mechanism. It wasn't like a bad mechanism.
No, it wasn't.
It would have a lot higher probability to fail.
Yes, it would.
Because there's a lot of moving parts in there.
Well, I say that, but realistically, it's easier to get around if it does fail. Whereas if optical drive fails, you have to replace the whole optical drive.
What I'm curious about is that would the game still spin up and start with the drive open?
No, they don't. But you could probably, if you could do something to trick and just push the thing that's supposed to tell it that it's done, you could probably get it to.
Or maybe you'd have to keep it closed, I would think. So maybe just slide it closed and duct tape the top of it while you're playing.
Well, you could do that, or you could just get something that wedges and holds.
That's true, too.
You know.
So here's what you do. You build... I just thought of something really gimmicky. You build... Okay, it's going to look like a PlayStation 4 Slim, but about half the size. Cut it straight down the middle.
The whole top is going to open?
No,
and that's where
not a bad idea.
That's where the screen's going to be. No, the top layer opens up, and there's just a.
So you take a PlayStation 4 Slim and you cut it right down the middle.
Okay.
So you're left with something akin to the size of Wii U, but then you have a 5-inch to 6-inch LCD screen embedded on that, and then you buy a stand and you pop it on the stand.
So why you take this with no level of seriousness?
Okay, so here's what you do.
Hold on. I don't mind that your goofiness. But I am curious do you think that there was a real model that they will do?
I think that there's already been too many. There's been 3 when you think about it. There's been the launch one, there's been the Slim one, there's been the Pro.
Yeah, but I think the Pro does exist on its own.
It does, but it's still an iteration of a console.
So what I mean by that is that's like saying that Apple would not release another smartphone in the next year because they released the iPhone 6S.
Well,
you know what I mean?
They would release a budget version, if anything.
But that's my point. So you're going into what I'm talking about, where if they're going to make another one, it would be to be more budget friendly.
But they don't have one of those currently, but we do.
Well, iPhone does with the iPhone XR. If we're using the
analogy. That's okay. That's not as budget friendly as a Slim to a PS4 Pro. The XR is still like I think $799,
and the iPhone X is $1,000.
So $200 cheaper, which
or XS.
I guess actually is very equivalent. Now that I think about it,
pretty similar.
It's also one of those things though. The new iPhone, whether or not that comes out, is different than a console because it's not going to be the same new iPhone for 8 years.
Well, no, I don't mean that either. I'm just saying as an analogy as why I think that the Pro And it is important to talk about the Pro in the sense of phones a little bit, because the whole idea for the Pro and doing a mid-generation refresh came from how often cell phones reiterate versus how often consoles done. And cell phones reiterate at a much higher pace and can give you way more power in a small window.
But we're not getting more power.
We did with the Pro though. That's what I mean. So
I'm talking about, but with a new iteration, we're not getting more power.
Yeah, but I'm saying that there's only been 2 iterations of the PS4. There's only been 1 iteration of the PS4 Pro. I think that they exist separately from each other. But I don't think that you can say they're on the same thing. You can't say there's been 3 iterations.
I don't think we'll
PS4.
see a more budget version come out. They already have success. I mean, think about it. The current Slim goes for $200 during Black Friday and holiday sales, and it's not an uncommon sale. What are you going to sell for? $150? Like, are you gonna make it so that
you could definitely go lower, but there's ways that you could do that too. So going back to the Super Slim, and I only do this because we have to look at the history Sony's done to know how likely it is that they'll repeat it. But that doesn't mean that they're going to.
It's a different Sony at that point.
It is
different presidents.
Yeah, a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
They are the success story this generation from the get go all the way till now.
Yeah,
whereas last generation they were the failure story that turned into the success story,
which still was not seen by many people.
A lot of people still consider them to have lost.
Yeah.
And I mean, for all intents and purposes, I think it's fair to say that Xbox won the majority of the generations. So if we're looking at it by that sense, they technically won the generation.
It's fair to say that Microsoft won, but it's not
even if Sony did more numbers later.
Sony's success story at the end.
Yeah. So, but what they did there still, and this just goes to show something that's very close to what you're wanting to do. So what Sony did with that, there's a Super Slim, and it came with a 500 gig, a 250 gig hard drive models of those. But then they also did a 12 gigabyte model that was substantially cheaper, and it was a small hard drive.
I don't remember that at all.
So what you could do, not every game, you could upgrade the hard drive on your own if you wanted to. You could do it to where, you could do it to where you just had it set up with, you could do digital titles if you wanted to. You could do disc titles that didn't make you install them. You could do it was essentially, how cheap do you want to get into a PS3? This is a Blu-ray player. This does let you play some games, and this was the perfect entry model for specifically people who were either patient gamers or very casual gamers.
Well, obviously the George Foreman could play Blu-ray games. Could it play Blu-ray movies too?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. I remember thinking...
Well, the games were Blu-ray.
Also, I said obviously you can play Blu-rays. Yeah, I'm just saying...
Kind of has to at that point.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about, I didn't know...
If it had the codecs and everything needed to run.
For movies, because I thought I remember Joe specifically having issues out of his.
He may have had issues, but it wasn't because of a design purpose.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. That's what I was curious about, because I didn't have Blu-rays at that point.
But anyway, when you look at that, and I want to see how much that actually costs. So because it was notably cheaper. I want to say it was $139 for the 12 gigabyte model. And
of course, it was 12 gigabytes. It couldn't fit a game on there. Yeah. I mean, back then it could probably fit 2 or 3. Maybe, depending on your
certain games, yeah, sure.
But my whole thing is like what I would really like to see, just for the novelty sake of it, is just so I would trade in my current base model Slim base model PS4 that's in the living room to buy one of these. I want a small discless PS4 Slim that you can use it for everything else that you can use a PS4 for. Like, it'd be cool to have it as a Netflix player, because that's realistically play. Or my wife plays Elder Scrolls Online, which I own the digital version of that anyways, so I could let her use that for her to play. It would be kind of cool. Like, I want to see, like, it sounds novel, and it is, but it's one of those things I like small electronics that have really beefy specs, and they're just in a small package. That's why I like it. I'm playing around in my mind with the new PC build. I want it to be micro ATX, but those, dude, it's ridiculously expensive. It's the cost there is so much higher for a micro ATX build for PCs.
Yeah, well, because you're trying to get everything down, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
So let's see. The entry level machine was available to buy for €120 for the. So it was
that is $139 US, I think,
somewhere around there, because it changes every day. But yeah, that just goes to show that.
Well, I'm talking about the rough equivalent of value back then.
Yes, yeah. But that's my point of one of the biggest things that they could stand to gain from doing what they're doing, from doing specifically another Slim revision, would be that even when they did the Slim PlayStation 4, I'm pretty sure it's on an 18 nanometer, so they could still go smaller with a 14, save time, make it more energy efficient, do all these things, make it cheaper to produce. All these different things could happen, and they could come out with a model that's even more. And the reason I say that is Sony is dead set on making sure, and they've talked about it time and again, 2012. October 2012 specifically.
Oh boy. Well, let me go far back.
Oh, how much?
Dude, the euro has dropped like crazy in just the past 3 years.
But so is the US dollar, if we're going to talk about that.
Oh, that's true too. So yeah, it would be roughly $130 to $140. I never saw that model ever.
It apparently was only in the UK, but I remember seeing it.
Okay, I was gonna say I never once saw that model when I was out shopping around or anything.
So,
and it goes to show you, like, even back, like, I like these consoles because they're good for patient gamers. Because in 3 years, if they made a super slim PS4, it's gonna be a great value in 4 years.
And what I
don't think that they're gonna do it.
Well, and the reason I even say that is where I was going just a second ago is that Sony is dead set. One of the biggest things they've talked about time and time again is they constantly talk about the PlayStation 2 and its success. And a lot of the PlayStation 2 sales happened after the PS3 was
There was
already
only one iteration of the PlayStation 2, wasn't there?
It only had one Slim, but the Slim was and that's when we were talking about
the Slim could fit in my cargo pocket.
Dude, the Slim was insanity from what the launch model PS2 was. You know, you're talking about going down to a PS4 that's the size of the breakout box. It's not impossible, clearly, because we saw Sony take something that was as massive as the launch model PS2, which was a beautiful console. I love the way it looked.
Was big, though.
But they went down to, I would say,
it was probably half an inch thick.
An eighth of the size of the original release?
I would say it's about half an inch thick and maybe a little bit more. Maybe
I'd say it was about an inch thick.
Dude, I don't think it was. I think it was really tight.
You got to think, man, the launch model PS2 was like 3.5 inches.
I know, but okay, I'm telling you, dude, Gavin let me borrow his, and I took it home in my cargo pocket.
Yeah, dude, I know.
I threw it in my cargo pocket and then the other cargo pocket I had the cables.
They went from having an actual, the DC adapter to having it to where you plugged it in with one of the little PSP charger style things.
Yeah.
So it was a drastic change, but it goes to the same point. My larger point for that is that most of the PlayStation 2's sales that continued to go on to make it hit 150 million happened after the PlayStation 3 was already announced, after it was already released, and it just kept going to the point where the last PlayStation 2 game made was like, we talked about it a number of times, PES 14 or something like that. And when you think about it in that situation, if they want this to be a similar success story, the way you go about doing that is find whatever way you can to get the console down as cheap as possible. If there's a way for them to make it cheaper still, more efficient and that much more.
Height was 1.1 inch. So right over an inch. That's still super tiny for what it was back in the day.
Yes, it was. Absolutely. And the reason I even thought about that is you got to think about it. The system had to have its own things, and then it had to have the plugs for the console. The controller plugs were thick already.
Yeah, that's true.
We're used to USB cords now, but those things were pretty thick. So when you're looking at that, though, do you not agree? And I'm not saying that you have to agree that they're making one, but I think when you think about how obsessed PlayStation is with repeating the PS2 with the PS4, that means they want to hit as close to 150 million, if not even over it, as possible. And the only way to do that is to find ways to make it cheaper and cheaper. And they're not going to hit that number by keeping the PS4 at $300.
No, but it's not something I disagree that they should do. I want them to do something like this because it would be really cool and almost novel to have, especially if they can get it as tiny as possible. It's something I don't think they're going to do.
I think they are in a different spot, and they didn't do it with the Vita, but the Vita was a dying console already.
Or they could just slash the price of the PlayStation 4 Slim.
Yeah, but sometimes you can't do that when you're actually dealing with how much plastic and stuff goes into it.
True,
some components don't go down in price. Plastic doesn't change in price really as often as the components for other things do.
I really want to see like how big a Switch Lite is in my hands, because I feel like it's going to be like that big, but like I can't, it's hard to tell. I feel like it's going to be just a little bit bigger than a Vita.
Yep, I mean, probably. But either way, if there's anything else you want to add, Saul, feel free to.
No, I'm done. I just want to know what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, our community's take question this time around will be, do you think Sony will do a super slim of the base model PS4? Do you think there is a chance of doing a PS4 Pro Slim? And do you even want them to do it or think it's a good idea for them to do it? That's why I'm going to leave it on.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm really, really curious as to what you guys think, because like I said, I agree. I want them to do a new slim. I don't think they will, though.
If we had to land on predictions, not like a real bet, but just a prediction that we could go back at and go, hey, curious on that. Would you predict that they do or don't? You're going to predict that they don't, right?
I'm going to predict that they don't.
Just to go out
Devil's
there and
advocate.
say, I'm going to predict that they do.
Devil me, daddy.
But we would love to hear your thoughts, and hope you guys enjoyed the episode for what it was. And hey, thanks to our patron, Mr. Sean One Neo. He's been listening to us forever. Thank you for giving us your time every week. Thank every one of you that does so. Would love to hear your thoughts. Give them to us on YouTube down in the comment section below. Give them to us on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want to do it. I will this week repost the community's take question, and hopefully it didn't get cut off of this episode. We can only hope. So we'll do all that, and we will see you guys next week. But as always, thank you guys for joining us, and this has been Triangle Squared.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks to our patrons, Chad V, Dan Barber, Josh Jarrell, Matthew Green, My Name is Dan, Douglas Blow, Sean Santarud, Eric McAllister, Matt Sycamore, Shadowist, Steven Salazar, The Stonard, Travis Blow, Eduardo Palomino, Stefan Swanlin, Coy Live, Philip Laguerre, Corey Hickerson, Brian, Donovan Williams, William Digital Spooker, Derek Porter, Josh Ayers, Thomas McInnes, Brandon Edwards, and Sean One Neo. If you'd like to support the show in any form or fashion, go to patreon.com/Nartech and consider giving us as little as $1 a month. Thank you.
Thank you.